Hey everyone, we've got some more spoilers from Zendikar Rising. Starting out with this one here, Vision of Someone. We will see what the final names end up being for all of these cards. Right now, a bunch of them are being spoiled in different languages, but at 2 and a blue, this is an instant, and you're going to look at the top 6 cards of your library and take an instant or sorcery, put it to your hand, the rest go on the bottom in a random order. So, an interesting card for digging. The fact that it can come down as a land or potentially dig for your removal, it makes this an interesting card. I wouldn't be surprised if this is going to see some play. Black Bloom Rogue, a 3 casting cost 2/3 with Menace, and it gets +3/+0 as long as an opponent has 8 or more cards in their graveyard. This card's going to be totally fine for pre-release Menace, making it more difficult to block in the early game and could be a solid candidate for carrying equipment, and we're starting to see more and more of that equipment coming in. Speaking of equipment, we've got Skylave Pick-Axe, a 1 casting cost piece of equipment, and for 1 casting cost equipment, when it's good, it can be very good. And here, this is going to attach to a creature when you play it, as does so many of the equipments that we've seen. I think all of them that we've actually seen so far. And it's going to give a landfall of +2/+2 to the creature. So we've seen this in the past as, I believe, Adventuring Boots, something like that, from the original Zendikar. That was playable. I think this is going to be potentially pretty good in green decks. And, not having the fetch lands in the cycle, a little bit of an issue, but it does seem like you're going to be able to hit at least a land drop per turn pretty consistently in this format. Glacial Grasp at 2 and a blue, tap a creature, doesn't untap, and they mill 2, and you draw a card. I love this card for limited. I just think this is a lot of fun. Shuts down a creature and draws a card. The milling could be a nice upside, and I'm on board. I mean, this is pretty legit. Veteran Adventurer, 6 casting cost 5/5, but it's going to cost less for your party, so potentially a 2 casting cost 5/5 with Vigilance, and it's also going to count as every creature in your party. So when you do declare your party, it is based off of the number of creatures. So even though this is all 4 creature types, doesn't actually give you a full party. It just gives you 1 member of your party, whichever one it needs to be. And this one is going to be probably quite solid. I mean, 5/5 Vigilance is a lot to grapple with in constructed, and limited, I should say. So your pre-release pool, we're starting to see those uncommons. And in my mind, that's really where the consistency comes from for limited. When you're talking about draft and sealed deck and kind of like trying to get reps in and get good at the format, usually it is going to be the uncommons and your understanding of them that are going to dictate the margins where you figure out how to win where other people are going to lose. Sure, if you get incredible rares and mythics, maybe you get a cakewalk, but draft after draft, seal deck after seal deck, it's really the uncommons which tend to be where you need to be to find the power level, because they can, when leveraged properly, be incredibly good, and you're likely to see them. That's really the main thing, is you're gonna see uncommons, whereas rares and mythics, you can't really count on ever seeing a specific rare or mythic when you're talking about limited. Mind Drain. I've been kind of trashing the discard spells in limited, and I'm still probably not on board with this one, but man, they make it tempting. I think at common, this is also a card that people are going to be interested in for Pauper. Probably not going to be good enough. But man, it does a lot, right? Your opponent discards 2, mills a card, and loses a life, and you gain a life. There's all sorts of triggers that can happen based off of people losing life or you gaining life. So very interesting card. Definitely pushed. I mean, we've had just 2 in a black for your opponent to discard 2 cards, and people have played that plenty of times. So this one is interesting. Not strictly better than all of the discard out there. Certainly not by any stretch better than any of the 2 casting costs discard spells that hit 2 cards. I'm looking at you, Hymn to Torok and Mind Wrench. But, this card, it's probably not going to be embarrassing at your pre-release pool. If your opponent's sitting there with 2 bombs in their hand, just waiting to draw that land so they can finally cast their game winner, stripping it out of their hand can be devastating. Or, if they've got the lands for it, and then it's either discard your bomb or miss your land drops, that can also really put them to the test. So speaking of bombs, wow, this is just all sorts of segues here. Turn Timber Symbiosis, 7 mana, sorcery. Think that we're going to see this in Commander. You look at the top 7, you put a creature card from among them into the battlefield, and if it costs 3 or less, you just get 3 +1/+1 counters on it. So you hit something like Eternal Witness, you're going to go ahead and get a 5 power creature for 7 plus that ETB, and that's kind of like your worst case scenario, outside of whiffing, of course. But I certainly expect people to play this in Commander, and it can come into play as a green land, untapped. This whole mythic cycle, really interesting. The fact that it's a land that also has this incredible upside, I think is going to be something that, I don't know if you can say a must play for Commander, but it kind of feels like it's going to be for any deck that's heavy green. My goodness, are you really going to play a forest over this thing? I don't think so. All right, we've got a bird here with flying for 3, 2/2, and when it enters the battlefield, you may return a land you control to its owner's hand, and that's probably fine. That can, if you're on turn 4 and you don't have a land drop, you can pick up a land and replay it to get that extra 1 mana for your turn, similar to Quirin Ranger. So this card's probably going to be totally fine in Limited. Concerted Defense, 1 blue, counter target non-creature spell, unless they pay 1 for each creature in your... 1 plus an additional 1 for each creature in your party. So, interesting. It's a force spike for non-creature spells. That potentially turns into a miscalculation or a mana leak or a discombobulate. Is that the forecasting cost one? It goes all the way up to 5. That's fine. That's very interesting. I don't like counterspells in Limited in general, so I don't know where this would actually fit in. Maybe it's going to be a sideboard card in Constructed or something. Maybe we have to wait for that Dungeons and Dragons set for this to reach its full potential. But this card is within the range of being reasonable for smaller formats. It's really tough to compete when you're talking about Legacy. We have things like Flusterstorm and Spell Pierce. It's tough to get better. You have to have 2 creatures in your party before it's better than Spell Pierce. So, I was just going to try and read this one, but looks like we're in German here. Malakir comes out, so we've got some type of vampire card. And let's see here. I'm actually going to jump over to the translation. Yeah, none of those keywords were jumping out at me. You're going to choose a creature, lose 2 life, and then it's basically Zubera Storm. When that creature dies, it comes back, and it also, of course, can come in, as we see from the bottom, as a land. So it's not a common, so we can't really jam it in Pauper Zubera Storm, but that's basically the same effect. And, historically, we've had this effect for 1 mana plenty of times. Usually there's some type of upside, like giving it +2/+0, or making it come back with a +1/+1 counter. So, I don't know. It could be fine in like a black-green pre-release pool where you've got big fatties that you're going to save with this card. There's probably nothing wrong with that, especially if you're getting any ETB. Scourge of the Skyclaves. It's a fun card. 2 mana. Death Shadow of sorts. Its power and toughness are equal to 20 minus the highest life total among players. So if your opponent is at 10 life and you're at lower because of all of your fetches, you got a 10/10 for 2. Death Shadow, much, much stronger at 1 mana. This does have a kicker on it for the low cost of 7 mana. But by the time you're paying 7 mana for this type of effect, it's pretty much outside the realm of a cheap creature. So, I don't know. It's a fun kind of effort. I don't know if this will actually connect with people. A lot of people love the card Death Shadow, regardless of it actually being a tournament playable card, which it very much is. I don't know if this will connect with those same players or not. Maybe they'll love it. Maybe they don't really care about the 7 mana. Maybe they're going to be totally fine just getting this, 10/10 for, or, I mean, I guess in Commander, you're going to get a 20/20 for 2, which, sure, or for 7, I should say, because, you're going to have to kick it to make that happen. Mesa Lynx. I'm not excited about this one. It's a very chubby looking cat. I guess that's what they're going for, kind of getting at a bigger backside when it's not their turn. A 2/3 for 2 that you have to jump through hoops for. I don't know. Like, we already have Loam Lion and other things at 1 mana. So, I mean, this one's kind of uninspiring. It is a 2 casting cost, 2 power creature, so that's fine. It's going to be fine for your pre-release pool. That upside is not without significance, especially in a low to the ground battle where you're, putting this in front of another 2 power creature. But yeah, I mean, this just kind of feels like it's only in there for limited, and that's potentially fine if it ends up being a really sweet limited format. Stonework Pack Beast. Ugh, that's a tongue twister. Stonework Pack Beast. Word salad. 2 casting costs for a 2/1, and it is also going to fill in whatever you need for your party and fill in whatever you need for mana. So you can pay 2 mana to get 1 of any color. This stuff is really underrated in my experience for kind of newer players when we're talking about pre-releases and fixing their mana. It is so crucial that you are able to play your spells, that a card like this can easily play a role in smoothing out your mana. No, it's not a card anybody is likely to be excited about playing, but I have certainly had many pre-releases that I've swept through because of cards like this allowing me to not necessarily play like some weird 5-color deck, but just like actually just have a little bit more consistency in a 2 or like a 2-color with a splash pre-release pool, and just be able to actually cast your spells. There are so many times where you beat somebody and they put down a hand full of red cards and they're like, oh, if I had only drawn, a mountain, and it's just like, or you could have played some mana fixing. Also an option. So the more you can do to kind of keep that in your control is going to pay dividends in the long term. You're kind of going down an overall card quality in your pool just to get that consistency, and very often that's worth the trade-off. And, 2 mana for a 2/1 can get the beats in there and help out with the party. So I think this card's going to be probably underrated and not embarrassing at all for your pre-release pool. And I think we are right back to the beginning. So that is it for this one. These always take a little longer than I expect. I didn't even really go down any rabbit holes here. I will quite possibly be taking the day off tomorrow. It is Labor Day, and maybe I'll do another video at night. We'll see. If there's any like super exciting spoilers, I'll probably have to. But if not, we'll see you guys Tuesday. Thanks for watching.